agreed as follows. Number one, to promote Africa to be fully represented in all the UN organs, especially the United Nations Security Council. To have 2 permanent seats with the 2 veto rights and 2 more non-permanent seats with the UN Security Council as Africa's legitimate right and aspiration to correct the historical injustices endured by the continent. Number 3, the African Union shall be responsible for the selection of African representatives to the UN Security Council. These were very good principles, and there is no useful reason as to why they should be altered or diluted. The UN Security Council should have been and must be reformed. This is not a favor by anybody, but a right of all peoples that inhabit the planet Earth. If we had such arrangements, mistakes like what happened in Libya would not have happened. Because I remember on the issue of Libya, I was a member of the Committee of 5. I hear rumor that I'm still a member, although it never meets. There was a Committee of 5 on Libya. I think chaired by Jacob Zuma, or either Jacob Zuma or Sassou Nguesso. We were members of that committee to bring peace in Libya, and we were going to do it. And actually, at that time, I didn't go, but I sent a representative, and the African leaders were in the aircraft going from, I think, Mauritania to Libya, in the air. When they were told, go back, Libya is being attacked. Can you imagine? African leaders, former colonials are attacking an African country against the wish of the African Union. This is a very big mistake for this generation to accept. Very big mistake. Now you see the chaos which came from that. So who is accountable for this? These crimes. These are crimes against humanity, which they keep talking about.
Well, thank you so much and a very good morning. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka. Welcome to BC TV, and it is a Pan-African Friday today. It is the 21st of January in this year 2021. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka. Welcome yet again. And this is at the end of week 2 of the reopening of schools in this year 2022. Now, thank you so much and welcome. And we of course started from that note of the C10 conference that just ended yesterday. A conference that was at the Speaker's His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, just right there, at that conference that was in Munyonyo. Now, the conference currently is chaired by President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, and Uganda is a co-chair too. That particular one. Now, we'll start a conversation today on what we saw happen yesterday at the Speaker's Resort in Munyonyo, and of course, picking it up from where the President lives it. With me in studios, the usual panelists of the Pan-African Friday. Ndugu James Mututa here, karibu.
Asante sana.
Happy to have you again.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Ndugu Karibu Rugarama of the Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter.
Asante sana. And thank you so much, dear panelists, our viewers, and the entire management of UBC TV.
Thank you very much. Akol, karibu.
Yeah, asante sana, and I also must thank UBC, especially the sports desk, for the wonderful job done, because it is AFCON and it is a Pan-African affair.
It's actually a Pan-African affair, and I really love what is happening at AFCON this particular season. You weren't with us last Friday. Ulipata mswiba. Are you fine? Are you well?
Well, last Friday, sikuweza kufika. I wasn't able to. But I was happy that the panel that was around really did justice to the topic that was being discussed.
Okay. Well, let's start with the C10 to maybe just remind the people that the C10, of course, it's called the African Union Committee of the 10 Heads of Government, and this declaration started in Swaziland and in Sereti, the Swaziland consensus, and of course the Sereti Declaration of 2005, where African heads of states came together to lobby for a permanent position, a common position on the United Nations Security Council, just as the president has been talking about here, and of course emphasizing that if there is cohesion, if we are united, and he says it doesn't need all of us, but you just need to have a few people coming together for a common position to see how we can defend ourselves as Africans. And of course it's an initiative under the ambits of the African Union. Now we thought this morning that we would have our ambassador ambassador to Ethiopia and Djibouti, who is the co-chair of this meeting, but she will unfortunately not be able to join us live in studios, and she won't even make it on Zoom because there are still meetings happening at this particular time in Munyonyo. So we possibly will have a next week on our Pan-African Friday. But let me start with you and do a call on what we saw happen in Munyonyo and what sense we make out of it as the continent of Africa and as Pan-Africanism or Pan-Africanists.
Well, from what the president actually has just said, or how he has always said, that if Africa was really united, what happened in North Africa, especially to Comrade Muammar Gaddafi, would not have happened. And it doesn't stop there, because we are seeing a number of issues. We are seeing a number of issues where France and other Western countries interfering with the political processes in Africa. So implying that if really we could have that kind of unity, then we can also have a say at the UN Security Council. Those are some of the issues that are very, very key. It's very key that we could have a say, not actually spectators, not just imposing things onto us. Because ideally, when you look at the potential of Africa, in terms of the economic potential, the social potential, and now the political potential of Africa, it's not a continent that really should always be sidelined, should always just be there to rubber stamp what the big boys in the West have actually said. So this is a very, very good initiative. And of course, as he says, it is not that everybody should come on board. When you look at the Organization of African Unity, there are about 23 countries that started it. But eventually their aim, their goal of ensuring that Africa is free of colonialists was achieved. After that being achieved, now the issue was, look here, after achieving this, what next? Then you see it mutated into African Union, now with some structures. Of course, it's unfortunate that people like Gaddafi, who had a dream of expediting the United States of Africa, really got issues. So if at all we can have a very yes, so if we can get stronger, and of course even is what is happening in Ethiopia. You have a young man coming in, and he is preaching peace. Say, look here, we've been fighting with Eritrea, we need to stop this. He wins the peace award. The other day again, you see, actually he even begins dismantling these regional and tribal parties. So look here, we need national parties, so that Ethiopia comes together as one united country, because it is the seat of African Union. So I think somebody says, look here, as long as we allow Ethiopia to stabilize, then it goes without saying that Africa is also going to stabilize, and that is all we are seeing this happening in that particular region, yes.
Okay. Nduguru Garama, about the sit-in meeting that was in Munyonyo yesterday. I am very sure that you followed it. Your thoughts on that and what possibly that means, or it's just another meeting where heads of states and diplomats come, sit, enjoy, do all the things, write, sign resolutions, and leave it at that, then wait for another sitting again.
Our motto in the Pan-African movement is to organize rather than agonize. When you look at our patron, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the statement which we watched on the screens, where he was reporting the decisions of the C10 in Munyonyo, very fundamental things which he has mentioned, and permit me to repeat them here, that the meeting has resolved to have African continent have 2 permanent members on the Security Council, and that it should be a responsibility of the African Union to select those members or to do the honors at all material times. Look at what he said finally on that, at least the clip which we have watched. He said that he does not see any useful reasons at all from anybody to change what has been resolved in that meeting. That is a very important and powerful statement. And we have got to give kudos to the members that were meeting at Munyonyo. Now, as to whether that is going to be fulfilled, that's another debate. That's another thing. But have members met? Have they decided on what to do going forward? Yes, that too is very important. Why? The problems we have on the African continent are mainly because sometimes we actually don't know what our problem is. Now, when you do not know your problem, you cannot start to solve it. Permit me also say that the C10 is a creature of the African Union. And it was started to map and also make a follow-up on the inclusion of the African continent to the Security Council. Now that was around 2005, I think, if my memory serves me right. I heard you correctly put it that some of these meetings took place, one in Swaziland, that is Ezulwini, that is around the bank river banks somewhere there, maybe there was some good place, and then Seret later. But also look at, because I am sure the members viewing us would want to know, what is this? Because we take it for granted that everybody actually knows what the United Nations Security Council is all about. Now, this United Nations Security Council started immediately after the World War II, in about 1946, again. And when you look at the mandate...
After the formation of the United Nations Organization.
Thank you so much.
Post-World War II.
Yes. When you look at the mandate, majority of it rotates around maintaining peace and security throughout the world. Don't forget that. Maintaining peace and security throughout the world. Of course, at another day we shall discuss to what extent they have promoted and maintained peace and security. A huge debate. Now, the other is to admit new members on the UN. You are coming, you have to become a new member. Without the blessings of Security Council, forget it. They are the ones who do that. Now, the composition is that usually they are actually 15 members. But in actual sense, those who do the work are 5 members, permanent, they call permanent. China, France, Britain, and Russia, and the United States of America. Now, all those have got veto powers. of course, when you go back and look at the resolutions we came up with in Unyonyo, and we imagine that Africa is going to have two permanent seats, it means that they will be having two veto power. Now that's what makes the debate very interesting. But suffice to say that I'm glad personally from the Pan-African point of view, and as an African, that there are efforts from the African Union. Because we have had a tendency, when you go on the streets, people sometimes who don't care to go deep in some of these matters, who dismiss the African Union as just a barking and toothless dog. But I think there is something that is being done. As to how quickly and effectively we achieve some of these objectives we set for ourselves is another thing. But I think the C10 is a very good and important step that the African Union has set in place to make sure that the objectives, including even the 2063 agenda is achieved.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ndugu Rugarama. And of course, we're talking about, before we get into the other issues, the C10 summit that was in Kampala here in Munyonyo 2 days ago. And of course, for those of you who started with us the program, you saw the president of Uganda talk about the same meeting. Ndugu Mututa, your thoughts on the C10?
Like all of you have observed, I think it's a positive gesture towards the realization that Africa needs to come up and have solutions for its own problems. And I've been talking about this for quite some time now. I'm one of the critics of the UN, I mean of the African Union, looking at what is happening on a continent, and you cannot hear the voice of African Union coming up to say what's happening in Sudan, what is happening in Ethiopia, what is happening
in Mali,
exactly,
in and everywhere.
So you at one point come to have a feeling that like it is an abandoned area that where anyone can walk in and walk out with whatever they want. But I think this now shows us that there are efforts and that need to be supported, that African Union is now not waking up, but doing the right thing. Because I've been saying that, well, even with these resolutions, they may not be achieved today or tomorrow, but it is that intention is very important, that now they know that Africa needs ABCD. And whether we get one seat or whether we get that assurance that there will be a seat for African Union is good enough. But also they say the other thing is that the leadership needs to close the gaps. That consolidation, that togetherness needs to be achieved in the short run, so that we shall be able to put our heads together as Africans. Excuse me. Because as we speak today, there are people and leaders on this continent who are African or pseudo-Africans. Now, and they are the biggest problem that we have in on this continent, because they seem to be more aligned either to the Arab world or to the other parts of the world, not Africa. So even when as you sit down to discuss as Africa, they have the other mind of being either superior Africans or pseudo-Africans, not real Africa. They can even ask you about Africa, like they're not part of Africa. But what was discussed yesterday is very important, and is something that I think any African would have wished to hear. Now, beyond hearing, I think we should also support our leaders to ensure that this is achieved. Because if Africa does not take charge of its affairs, in fact, remember sometimes I've been saying, why can't we, even for purposes of PR, also cause some sanctions? We sanction some of these people who are giving us headache on this continent. We have seen the West Africa, for example, we know where the problems are coming from. But either we are too timid, too weak, or just afraid to come up and say, no, I think we need this to stop. So, but with such meetings, I'm sure the future of Africa is going to be defined. And I think we're on the right track, given the right leadership. Because again, we have been talking about the leadership. The president was talking about then I think President Zuma was the chair of the five.
Yeah, during the times of Brother Gaddafi.
Yes, but
it was Zuma of South
But
Africa.
it was the South Africa was one of the first countries who voted for the attack at the UN. Because you know that night resolution that was smuggled in easily.
There was a trade-off. You should know what was promised.
Exactly.
And what Zuma received.
So for me, not saying it in a bad faith, I have very little sympathy even what Zuma is going through as a person.
Look at you now. Don't get into the
That is my person.
Don't get
But
into
anyway, but the most
into those
important
issues.
thing
Yes.
is that African leaders,
Africans feel sorry for anybody who is in a problem. That's our culture. We have to feel sorry for anybody who is actually in a problem. Whenever they're in a problem, we bury all the other things away.
And Ndugu Mutula has finished his submission. I just wanted to state that it is unfortunate that Africans try as much as humanly possible, some Africans try as much as humanly possible to undermine their own efforts.
Yeah.
Some don't even make an effort. Now, that is very unfortunate. I can assure you that these seemingly little efforts we see from our leaders are not small.
Yeah.
They speak big volumes. I want to go back to what the president, the example which our patron and the president of the Republic of Uganda gave, that had we been at another level when the events in Libya unfolded, we would have prevented what happened in Libya.
And we had all the capacity.
Go on the streets. Again, I use the same word. I don't mean you go literally on the streets, but you go and ask even seemingly schooled people why what happened in Libya, the so-called friends of Libya who were meeting in Paris. You can imagine, friends of Libya were meeting in Paris. You see, I hope you remember that at one time Libya actually sponsored the presidential elections in France. That was Sarkozy, something like that. You look at the level of development that was in Libya. You look at all indicators of development as we know them. Actually, Libya was even much better than the so-called first world countries, these countries in Europe. On all indicators, look at the Libya then and the Libya now and tell me that there was a problem of dictatorship in Libya which had to be removed. I mean, it is high time we started putting on thick lenses to focus on what exactly. You see, the moment we do not, I like this book. I want to conclude by saying, I like this book by Kosala, Darkness at Noon. Majority of you could have read it. Somewhere, yes, Arthur Kosala. Somewhere, there is where he says that one of the characters in the book, that we have examined the problems with microscopic exactness. But every time we apply a healing knife, a new sore appears. Fix that to what is happening on the African continent. We must do a very serious rethink.
Okay, very important. Now, that actually brings me to, before we get from this particular issue, when Kano, Mamadou Doumbouya, overthrew Alpha Conde in Guinea, not so long ago, in September last year actually, when the African Union came in to prevail and to talk to him about this and that, and he just shunned them away and said, mulikuwa wapi? You know, these things keep coming in. The other day, about 2-3 days ago, the president of the Gambia was sworn in after that election, President Adama Barrow. Now, remember, the first time Adama Barrow comes into office, I think in 2016, after that election that threw out Yahya Jammeh, Yahya Jammeh conceded defeat. Then 2 days later, I think a day later, he says, no, I didn't actually lose. We saw him taking oath of office. He was actually sworn in the neighboring country in Senegal. Now, this particular election that he organizes, I think the MDC or the opposition party says, no, we need to go to court. And of course, it's actually a court that told them, no, the election was free and fair, so the man can go ahead. And now, it is still the same thing, that even the advent of Adama Barrow, still the country does not say, we are the problem, and the problem was Yahya Jammeh, who had stayed there for 2 decades. Now, Adama Barrow has just come 1 term later, and everybody there is quarreling and saying, no, it's not a fair game, it's not a fair deal, it's not all this. We're seeing the same problems in Nigeria. The same Buhari who benefited from a situation is actually now again the same one undoing the situation that he benefited from. And of course, we talk about these very good efforts of the African Union. And from the submission of the president here and Petron, from quite a number of things. When you get into the documents and read and see what is actually happening at the African Union, you would think we should have this very good Africa yesterday. But what is happening? What is the problem now that you have a Domboye who has totally no belief in this continental body? Even when you talk about getting seats at the UN Security Council, does it even benefit him? Does he even, is he even concerned about it? Because somebody will say, I am actually looking at my country and I want to see things get better. Things never get better. 5 years later, the people are back onto the streets again, quarreling and saying this or that. Ndugum Tuta.
The starting point is that the African ourselves, much as we are now asking for this and asking for that, which is really positive now, the way we are moving, but we should also seem to be behaving. Because if we need to have our own structures, we want the UN to do that, and I'm sure the leaders of Africa are going to push until they get that. But the African leaders should also have respect for themselves, respect for the structures of Africa. But also, can we as African Union have a Security Council, a strong Security Council for Africa? Yes. Can we have an army for Africa? Can we have the CDC strong for Africa? So that even as we get there, some of the things can be automatic. Once we have built this capacity. Now the problem is that we are not allowing ourselves to build this capacity. Even the African Union, when you look at the commissions, it is like a loose relationship. Can we strengthen the African Union and its structures? Now, if that is done, it will be easier to call some of these people from these smaller countries and whichever countries in Africa to say, look, I think this is the right thing for Africa and this is what we need to do. And even if you are imposing sanctions, then those functions will be felt because we have an institution to monitor and cater for that. For now, it is not possible because some of these bullies in Africa are doing that because they know no one is going to walk in and stop them from doing what they are doing. But what Africa needs now is to start by having its own strong institutions. We have a strong police, we have a strong army, we have a strong, all these systems once in place, trust me, the rest of the world will respect us, and even within ourselves, we shall respect ourselves.
Okay. Ndugu Wakoli, you wanted to say something on that particular one?
Yeah, I wanted to say something that a journey over 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Europe has built those institutions, but it has taken them over 400 years. America over 200 years. And Africa, we are not even 100 years old. Now that in terms of the modern Africa, of course not the ancient Africa, the modern Africa that was
post-colonial Africa.
The post-colonial Africa. We are not even 100 years old. So I believe that yes, whatever steps we are taking are steps in the right direction. Look at the struggle of the Marcus Garvey, the Martin Luther. It took about a century for us to have the first black president in the US. Okay, and you know, even there was a time they were discussing that, but when Martin Luther and Marcus Garvey and the likes of Malcolm X were fighting, they were not fighting for the likes of Obama, the second generation migrants, children of the second generation migrants. They meant those, the sons of the slaves, but said, look here, no, if it cuts across, whether you're a child of the first generation migrant or second generation, as long as you're black, as long as you're an African, as long as you're given a right to vote. Now, still, you realize that women used not to vote in the US. But see, you have a very long time, yes, but you see, until recently, they even had a presidential candidate, a woman. Now they even have a vice president. So things take time, but what is important is to have the process started and initiated. Now, you did talk about issues of, at times, what goes wrong with the Africans. That the very door that brings you in is the first door you'd want to close when you're in. Yeah, it's because we really do not, as Africans, we are yet to believe in institutions. We are yet to believe and empower our institutions.
Let me just get you here on the same, and I think now we move from the sit-in and get to the discussion of political systems on the continent of Africa. Now, from what you're saying now, somebody will give you an argument and say, you are discussing the United States. Now, you actually talk about the United States, that they built their systems, and their confederation has had to grow, and of course, they have so much in common, as opposed to a continent where you first of all, you not even have the United Africa. Now, you are in Uganda and you are running a presidential system of 5 years. You are running another system in Ethiopia. You are running a presidential system in Ghana, which is 4 years. You are running this system in another country, which is a hybrid in a way. Now, we have this. You are running a federal system somewhere. You're running another federal system of governance somewhere. You are running a different system. Now, the Africa that we're talking about is, you want to do the comparison with the United States. But yet again, when the Marcus Garveys, the Malcolm X's of this world, the Martin Luther Juniors and all the others, they were looking at this United Africa, United America. But you have a very different system, a very different setting in Uganda. Then you go to another African country where you totally have another very different setting. We are averagely 60 years post-independence. Averagely 60 years, even when we have those who are very young, like South Sudan. But these are, but averagely, you could think we are actually at 60 years. Many years ago, about 60 years ago, we had what they used to call the UTNA, the Uganda, not Uganda, the Union of Radio Television, something Network for Africa, which of course was phased out, and it became the African Union, I think, of Broadcasters, or the African Union of Broadcasters, something like that. We've been talking about the situation in Ethiopia, and we've left this to the foreign media. Internally, Ethiopia is actually crying foul of the foreign media, saying you are giving us bad PR, you are portraying us out there badly.
Which is true.
Which is actually true. Now, a few countries on the continent come out to say, no, please, you are misrepresenting Africa. The real situation in Tigray is actually this thing. Now, we are only struggling as individual broadcasters on the continent to say we are friends of Ethiopia, we are friends of Ethiopia in Kenya, we are friends of Ethiopia in Uganda or elsewhere. But you don't see the African Union of Broadcasters come out to say this is our affair, and this is the way it is. Now, with just that, let's get to the different political systems on the continent and see whether they can actually also help us achieve a united Africa.
Well, I think the problem is not the different political systems or the different systems, because where people are federated, for example, let's look at the federation that brings together the United States, is that all those states did not come on board at once.
Naturally,
it was a process,
you don't come at once, yes.
One after the other. And there are some states, by the way, that speak Spanish, not even English. Yes. So you realize that it is not about uniformity but harmonization of systems that you have for the common good, for the common agenda. Now, back in Africa, it's very true that we have different political systems. But these different political systems can best work for us if, in the first place, the people that are being served by those systems believe in them. That is number one. If the systems are really transparent, and if the managers of those systems account and adhere to the principles of good governance. I think that's the bottom line. Now, it takes me to Gambia. Now, the situation of Gambia is a situation that is actually common in most African countries. When Yahya Jammeh was a very strong man in Gambia, and towards the elections, he made sure that the potential competitors were locked out from the elections. The potential competitors were imprisoned. And therefore there came one gentleman, Balo, who was just from the US, returned from Cheyo, and said, look here, I'm offering myself. So now, in the mind of Yahya Jammeh, he didn't expect that this young man who had just returned home with no political experience could have an impact. Now, what happened in Gambia, that is in 2016, was actually not voting for Balo. It was a protest vote. It was a protest vote towards what Yahya Jammeh was doing. Now, when eventually ECOWAS pushes out Yahya, because actually Yahya had no reason to rig an election because he knew that there's no way this young a political non-starter could actually beat him. So he was only shocked that when they had finished counting the results, the results had actually, he had been beaten. So that is how the situation was. Now, it meant therefore that in the mind of Gambians, Balo was supposed to be as a transitional president so that he could organize for now a better Gambia. But like Binaisa said in Tebe College, you get it? Because Balo, unfortunately, comes from a minority tribe. And our politics here in Africa are actually on ethnicity. And Yahya Jammeh ruled Gambia for a very long time because he came from the what? From the biggest tribe. Actually, his tribe constituted about 40% of the population. So these are the challenges we find that in Africa, that these institutions have not yet been strengthened. It takes me back to what Nyerere said. Nyerere, when he was asked, when he was actually about to retire, he said, yes, I should be retiring because if I don't retire and perhaps die as a president, it is going to become hard for the next president to retire willingly. But if I retire and my successor also retires, and also the successor of my successor also retires, we shall have set a precedence and therefore institutionalized the presidency. And indeed that is what is working. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Nduguru Garama, on political systems on the continent.
Of course, I would have started by telling you that it really doesn't matter which political system we have on the African continent. You see, a rose flower, even after being called by another name, will still smell the same. Unless, of course, it is not a rose flower. Point here, as far as I'm concerned, is that whether you have got a parliamentary arrangement of a political system, like we have it in Somalia, whether you have got a one-party system, like we used to say that was happening in Libya, or it was happening here in Uganda under NRM, whether you have got the so much praised and kind of sanctioned, this is the benchmark of democracy globally. You know, our democracy has got the caretakers. They are those who tell us if we have reached the acceptable percentages of democracy. So you will have a political arrangement in a country like DRC, where you have got over 220 political parties, and they will tell you that that is democracy. You see? But why I started by telling you that regardless of the political arrangement on the African continent, it really does not matter, is because at the end of the day we are talking about service delivery. Are we, whatever arrangement you have as a country, are you getting services to your people? Now, if services, for instance, in Libya were delivered, and I can confidently tell you, because I practically saw what was happening in Libya, and the Revolutionary Committee's movement, which was that arrangement of kind of political arrangement. I saw the debates that were taking place right from the grassroots and generating ideas up to going up to the top organs. I can tell you that even when you looked at the university system, the education system in Libya, the healthcare system in Libya, the infrastructure, you know, and generally speaking, the service delivery, and somebody argues that because it was a one-party system, whatever that means anyway, therefore it was a dictatorship, and therefore Gaddafi should have gotten rid of, and him having gone the way he went, good riddance. Sometimes I get annoyed, but it is also not good to get annoyed in some places, because
that's why we asked Mtuta not to get annoyed with Zuma.
I would have used certain words here, but to such people. But it is not also good debating. It is not part of the good debating skills. But suffice to say that it is unfortunate that we have got people who think that political party, for instance, dispensation, multi-party political dispensation is the correct way of governance. What is that? In China, for instance, the people think that there is only one political party. It is not true. So the Central Communist Party is the majority party, or with the majority.
The Communist Party of China.
Yes.
With the Central Committee.
Yes.
Their central
so to think that there are no other political parties in China is not correct. But look at what China is able to deliver to her citizens, but at the same time how it is impacting the rest of the global society.
Its ruling party, the CPC, has a membership of less than 10% of the people of China. So less than 10% of the 1-point-something billion people.
Actually, yes, it is now. How many billion people?
1.23 billion.
1.4 maybe.
1.4 billion.
Right above India. So when you go to DRC recently was actually failing to hold an election because they said they didn't have money. Can you imagine an economy like DRC not having money? And they could have been right, by the way, that there was no money to carry out a presidential, parliamentary, and other forms of election. But we all know that DRC is mineral rich and other riches within that particular country. So you go to Somalia and you look at their parliamentary political arrangement and you ask yourself, now is this giving proper dividends to her nationals? So at the end of the day, and I think there was a debate here, I saw in the papers, I have not really taken time to study what they are talking about, but there was something like that Uganda wants to adopt a system where the president is going to be elected by the parliamentarians. I don't know how true that one is. My colleagues will have a take on that. I don't know if really that is what is being planned. But like we have always said, there's nothing cast in stone. If, for instance, that comes and we get to appreciate what actually is involved in parliamentary political arrangement, and we pass that, then maybe we shall take that route. But currently, that's not what we're having. And probably it could be a rumor. There was a caption, I think I saw in social media, that was my senior brother, Norbert Mao, saying that he gave a call to the Attorney General, was it the Attorney General or Solicitor General, something like that, and he denied that such a thing was not going to happen. Now, of course, the usual friendly and quite an orator, Norbert Mao, was like, now when that was said, I knew it was true. Very interesting, Comrade Norbert Mao. But let me say that for me, my problem is not the nature of the political arrangement, because we must agree, and I confess that what we have on the African continent is not organic. It's not ours. Majority of what we have, if not almost everything, as far as the political arrangement is concerned, is what we inherited from our colonial masters. This is the last on this. That is not all. We didn't just inherit. They make sure through policies, be it economic policies, be it social political policies, that they continue to buttress the systems which they left in place, and that makes our work in the political arrangement on the African continent and governance a very hard paper.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ndugu Rugarama. And just a few minutes here to the hour of 10 o'clock. We are just aware that later in the day, the President will also be addressing members of the fraternity of tourism. And of course, this live will be coming on to your live here on UBC TV. When they are ready, we'll get to let you know. And of course, we'll create space for you. But Ndugu Mtuta, just before we go for a break, or just before we take a break, I want us to return from the break, and you take me on this particular one. Do the political systems of Africa as governance speak into the future of Africa? Because everything that we do, everything that we yearn for, everything that we keep preaching or teaching or talking about, or the aspirations of our continent, when you look at the political setting, when you look at the political systems now, Ndugu Rugarama here just talks about what also just here as a rumor of electing the president in parliament. Now, to many people out there, the conversation is Uganda's parliament today is 250, it's 529 members of parliament. So, and the conversation is, how should 529 Ugandans decide for the rest of the 40 plus million Ugandans that Rwatoro is our president, or Jagana is our president, or not even actually our president, but your president. And this is what the people think. The other argument coming from the other schools of thought is that it is the first time Ugandans had the first time from the existence of Uganda in 1996 to unanimously go out and participate in that adult suffrage election, where they had a choice and said, we have 3 Ugandans who have come to us, and all these 3 are subject to our vote. The was Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Paul Kawanga Semogerere, and Mayanja Chibirige Mohammadi. Ugandans chose, and they've had this continuously for the last so many years, since 1996. Now somebody comes and says, no, we've only realized that a Cole's vote is not as important. It's not the same value with Jaganda's vote, but yet their calls are many, and they're actually deciding for the Jagandas, or the Jagandas are many, and they're deciding for their calls of this world. So something needs to happen where we now have that arrangement. We talk about the American system, and the American system says, okay, Hillary Rodham Clinton has the popular vote, but Donald Trump has got the electoral vote. So Donald goes swearing as president. Then the other day they will say Al Gore has the popular vote. Then Bush has actually got the electoral vote. So Bush, go and say, and there's so many 60, 70 million Americans with their popular vote, of course, end up elsewhere to say we did not. Exactly. These different systems, and possibly some people say, why don't we also get that particular one? In Islam, they call it the Majlis Ulama, you know, the class of the knowledgeable or the wise, to decide not that everybody actually has. I just want to know from you, Ndugu Mututa, when we return from the break, whether you think that these political systems actually speak into the future of the Africa that we want. We'll take a break and return shortly.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial star 149 star 10 hash to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial star 149 star 10 star 5 hash. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial star 149 star 10 hash to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
National Resistance Movement Liberation Day in Uganda is celebrated on the 26th of January each year. The public holiday commemorates the date in 1986 when the NRA overthrew Tito Okello's government. The event will take place under the theme celebrating the 36th NRA Victory Day, a call to duty for all compatriots to contribute towards Uganda's socio-economic transformation journey. Don't miss out on the military parade and the speech from His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni from Kololo Ceremonial Grounds on UBC TV come Wednesday, 26th January 2022.
On the 9th of December 2021, Pope Francis appointed the Most Reverend Paul Semwogerere as the new Archbishop of Kampala Archdiocese, replacing the late Dr. Cyprian Kizito Lwanga. Semwogerere, aged 65, takes over the mantle as the 5th Archbishop of Kampala Archdiocese. On Tuesday, the 25th of January 2022, all roads will lead to the Sacred Heart Cathedral, Lubaga, for the installation of the Archbishop-elect of Kampala Archdiocese. Under the theme that we grow into the life of Christ, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, the Holy Mass will be telecast live on UBC TV at 10 a.m.
All eyes are on Africa. All eyes are on Cameroon. All eyes are on UBC. The drama, the heartbreak, the suspense, tears, joy and celebrations in the biggest sporting event on the continent. In one place, UBC. Call your public broadcaster today and grow your business with us. 0752 265 827 and 0776 611 540. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Back from the break and we continue the Pan-African Friday. My name is Jagana Semakola Ziksoka, and just a few minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock, we're still here until the hour of 11. It's a Friday, and of course every Friday we are here to talk about issues of the continent as a Pan-Africanist, and of course we're discussing and looking into the event that was at Munyonyo yesterday, the event that ended yesterday, the C10 conference that was here in Munyonyo. And of course talking about looking at the political systems on the continent of Africa and how much they mirror the future Africa that we want to see. Because different African countries, of course, run different political systems. Ndugu Mtuta, the future of Africa with the different political systems.
Yeah, like you put it, I think the problem which we inherited from the colonial administration is such that we have Africa which is divided in many other interests. We have the Belgians who have their area. We have the Portuguese. We have now here of late we are now having the English and the French. Now that is part of our problem. Now we need to look at that first, but also all these political systems, like colleagues have put it, they are just a vehicle. But at the end of it, we need to see results, deliverables with those political systems. South Africa, for example, has had ANC from the time of apartheid up to today. It's a popular party. But it's not only the only party in South Africa, of course. Yes, there is also the Democratic Alliance, which has a whole constituency, because from the I think there are eight provinces of South Africa. The opposition has one constituency, one province. So you see, it also has that. But when you go to Ghana, these are the most of the democracies they are talking about in Africa. You see, I think Ghana has a two-party system. When you go to Egypt, which is one of the oldest systems on the continent, and the Arab world, with their 6 terms in office, you realize they also have a strong parliament. So Africa has a lot of systems that can be well utilized for the delivery of services. But I think what we are suffering from are these hangovers from the colonial masters that administered Africa, that each one has its own small place which they want to govern, and we are trying to pretend like we need Africa divided along those lines. But also when you look at a country like DRC, which has about 26 provinces, most of these provinces are divided alongside the many parties that we have in that country. The problem, much as we also blame the outside world for the influence and the poverty and including diseases anyway, we also have problems of our own, issues of corruption, issues of nepotism, issues of, so that even as we cry for the unity, we also need to look at issues that are really putting us aside, one against the other, that we shall be able to be together. Otherwise, if we continue struggling against one another, when we have even a bigger problem above us, we cannot move. Now, when you look at all these political systems, the political systems are not a problem, but how we make use of those political systems to administer and have our people administered. Issues of when you look again at the African political parties, the other problem is that we don't have common or dominant political parties in Africa. Each small state country has its new party, the other formed for purposes of winning an election, the other one crossing from this political party to the other so that they can beat the other opponent. So this also derails our capacity to build stronger systems for purposes of administration, but also advancing the African agenda. When you look at Europe, for example, you have the Greens. It's a big party. It has a number of members of parliament within the European Union and even the European Parliament when you look at it. Because you would expect, like, for example, the East African Parliament, you would expect to have some members of particular political parties, much as we elect them through our parliaments, but we don't have a common party, even within the East African region, that we can talk of that this political party is a dominant political party here. So issues of integrity, issues of planning, issues becomes a problem because a political party mushrooms today, gets into power, and then tomorrow, when they begin having problems like I hear elsewhere, they begin breaking, then they have to look for where again to get. So most of the people we have are opportunistic politicians who just want to end up maybe in positions of power, but again, looking at what needs to be done for promotion of such a political party, its agenda, then becomes a problem. And when he brought up this issue, the rumor, which is actually hitting headlines all over, about people saying that the movement group, they call themselves, they say,
Transformer something.
Yes, saying that they want to have a president be elected by parliament, and then there's an uproar. The opposition is saying, the presidents just want to have all polling stations into one polling station so that he can easily have his way. But is this the first time Parliament is electing a president in Uganda? Should that be true? It's not. Because we have had president elected by Parliament.
But the conversation on that particular one was that the idea was that everybody finds a constituency. And Dr. Apollo Milton Obote flouted that.
Yes.
Because Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of UPM got a constituency. Paul Kawanga Semogerere of the Democratic Party got a constituency. Mayanja Nkanji of the Conservative Party got a constituency in Masaka somewhere. Then Obote said, no, I am bigger than a small constituency, and he refused. And so the endorsement of the UPC, the UPC members, I think, now when people look into
they think
that history,
so we're getting back
to some people, the argument is you can't now run across the country to say I'm looking for a vote here and here and here, and so you want something to be delivered to you on a silver platter. Posture, go and say, Jagenda Semokola is born in Salama.
But you know,
and so I become member of parliament for Makindye West, then come and my party makes me president.
But we're looking at countries like South Africa, for example. Ramaphosa is not elected by everyone.
Yes.
Into the political party.
I want
yes. The political
conversation. Actually, the other conversation is people even comparing it with everything in this world. Look at Bojo, Boris Johnson in the UK, and somebody says, okay, is he a member of parliament to start with before he actually becomes prime minister? Now how about in the Ugandan setting? Does it mean I must be a member of parliament before I become a president, or these members of parliament can get to the house and they say, we, the majority, are Uganda People's Congress. We have a young man called Jagenda Semokola. It is him that we want to be the president of Uganda. So they pull me from anywhere, come and make me president. And I think this is the conversation.
Exactly. What is going on? But
maybe if I can chip in,
yes.
On that particular issue. One, in Uganda, of course, in 1963, when we were electing the first president, it was parliament.
Ugandans didn't vote, of course.
Ugandans didn't vote. Yes. It was parliament that voted. But in 1980, it was not parliament that voted.
It was not parliament.
It was the party with the majority members of parliament that formed government. But I want us to say this, that issues of course, you see a constitution can always be changed depending on the circumstances. Or can always be amended, whatever, tempered with depending on the circumstances. I want to draw your attention to Kenya. Kenya in 2007, before 2007 actually, up to 2007, the law was that you are a presidential candidate as well as a parliamentary candidate. Moi was president of Kenya as well as MP of Baringo. Mwai Kibaki was vice president of Kenya as well as MP of Othaya. Mwai Kibaki won his 2 terms as president as well as MP of Othaya. Raila Odinga ran for president, that in the famous 2007 elections, as well as being a parliamentary candidate for Langata. The same was Kalonzo, as well as Kalonzo Musyoka as the parliamentary candidate for Mwingi North. So their constitution was very clear that even if you are elected by the entire country and you lose in your constituency, you don't become president. Exactly. Because ideally if you are old, so that is why that as you are campaigning, you'd ensure that you win that particular back home, that parliamentary seat. So that is what they had. So when after the 2007 crisis, is when they said no, you can't be parliamentary candidate as well as a presidential candidate, and that was changed. So that eventually was changed. Then they created a president who also has a running mate. Yes, those are some of the issues. Okay. Now in South Africa, actually what they have is what they call party list proportional representation. That at presidential elections, at the national elections, if, for example, today, in the last elections, ANC got 57% of the vote, it therefore means that in the National Assembly and in the provincial assemblies, they are going to nominate 57% of the seats. And indeed, that's how it is. It's called proportional representation. Now, at lower levels, at municipality, when it comes to councillorship, they have what they call mixed membership. And actually, mixed membership is what is also in Kenya and in Tanzania. That you have directly elected members of parliament, but you also have nominees of political parties depending on their performance at national elections. So that is also an arrangement that they really have, and they actually also believe in it. Now here in Uganda, for us, it's strictly direct representation. That whatever, at every level you have to be elected. There's nothing that you represent a party, you represent. It is adult suffrage. Even you vote. Yes. So it is. There's nothing like party representation. It is direct representation at all levels. Yes, at all levels. Now, if there is a school of thought that, look here, we think that we can only have elections for members of parliament, and then the party that perhaps garners more members of parliament forms the government, or the members of parliament, as it was in 1963, elect the what? So that mandate of electing a president is shifted from every Dick, Tom and Harry now to a selected a selected group who are now happen to be parliamentarians. Okay? So I think that, to me, that also has its own pros and cons. It has its own pros and cons, but I'm not going to get into the pros and cons of that. Yes, I believe.
Well, actually, fine. The gentleman is called Adupa. I think Adupa is the one running about with this, and I think he needs to explain to the nation what he's actually mooting and what he's trying to put out. You know, we love doing comparisons in Uganda. For example, we compare to even countries that we've not studied about. Somebody look at our cabinet, for example, and say, look at 81 ministers in a small country of only 40 million people, and look at Biden's very small cabinet in a population of 400 million people. And of course, the comparison is the entire 50 states of the United States against one small country called Uganda. You should be doing the comparison actually with another 50 states of Africa, not a single state of Uganda. But you're concluding your submission before Nduguru Garama comes in here.
On that one, because then you need to look at the merits and the demerits if such a situation existed, that Parliament should now be responsible for the election of the president. And I've seen this happen in other countries, like I've said. In Egypt, for example, the president appoints 5% of Parliament. Once he's elected president, and he has also to appoint members of Parliament. And we've seen this also happen in many other countries where the ruling party appoints commissioners, appoints people as heads of provinces. We have seen that happen also in most of these developed countries.
India has also a president in the United States.
Yes, exactly. We have seen in China, for example, members of parliament are people, mostly professionals, and they sit once in a year. And then they leave the rest of what they have decided for technocrats to handle until another year comes. And you can not tell me that China's performance is lower than any of the countries we know who sit day to day doing the same things. So systems are just how you prepare unselfishly for the good of a country. So once a system has been put in place and it is for the good of the country, any system can deliver. The problem in Africa, and particularly in Uganda, like what they are discussing now, when you hear most of the connotations, is that people assume that President Museveni is going to be here forever. And whatever comes up, the people in the mind is President Museveni is doing this, President Museveni is doing this. But I think it's also good to think about that system without President Museveni. Maybe we can even think better in that order. But like we were saying, that the politics of Africa has problems of the past is what is affecting us now, because we are looking more to the past. What happened? Even these issues that are being discussed in Uganda, we are looking more at the past than what we need to do for the future. It is of course good to have the history, because you cannot move ahead without the history, but also need to look at systems that can work. Comparing ourselves with the rest, fine, but also have the scientific information on the positions that we undertake as political systems, even as governments, so that you know that we are being informed by this policy or this program or this theory to be able to move. Because even now, even political parties have to be scientific in nature. If we are to, because it's management of people, then we must have the science behind the engineering behind whichever decisions that we take for the management of people. But if Africa had a common system, it would help us to move faster. But I think towards the political federation of the various zones of Africa, once that is done, and finally we come as one group as Africa, like Comrade Gaddafi was pushing. Of course, that's part of the problems that he had. If we had one common system, then Africa would be even faster, stronger, and even richer than what we are today.
Without necessarily looking at the different political parties in different countries, but just look at the system. Nduguru Garama, go to Kenya now and see. Ndugu Akoli Azakole, we talk about Kenya now. When you move from the times of the old Kanu, then you come through the old Fords to what is actually happening now, that you are having a president who is exiting power in a few months. When he came into office, he came in through a coalition called the Jubilee Coalition. Midway in his first term, this coalition actually now metamorphosed into a political party. And with, of course, a marriage of several other parties in there, and it became the Jubilee Party. Now, he comes back to power for his second term under the ambit of that new political party. Which political party is now not being talked about today? You would think that because the Jubilee Party is actually in leadership, they would want to continue Caron in leadership as an incumbent party. You would imagine that they still want to hold on to the grips of power. Now, you are seeing new formations again coming on. You have the ANC coming on. You have now the UDP. You have now, of course, Amani, and so many things are now coming on. A person who was with URP the other day and, of course, came into this marriage of the coalition and eventually the party is now again coming up with a new thing called the UDA. Now, their arrangement allows them to have all these outfits for as long as anything like that can help you get to power. Exactly. But just exactly, and because you're looking for power, but looking at the systems as they are. Today, if you told somebody that the president of Ethiopia is going to visit Uganda, and they do not see Abiy Ahmed, then they will wonder and say, now, for example, the president of Ethiopia currently, I think, is a lady. And if you told people that we have Mama Samia Hassan Suluhu in Tanzania as a female, and she's a president, but we also have another woman president in Ethiopia, they will say, no. Then where is Abiy Ahmed? You know, it gets to those levels. But reminding somebody that you have a prime minister called Abiy, but you also have a president in that other country, it's something that majority of the people will possibly not understand. Looking at these systems, what do they speak to our going forward as a continent in light of the so many things and the aspirations that the continent has?
If Africa can use a rather historical disadvantage, harness the good that she can from the system, would be good to go. What you are just talking about just a few seconds away is the political arrangement which I choose to call presidentialism. That if you do not talk about a country and a president, you are not discussing something so usual to the wananchi. On the African continent, generally speaking, we are used to the president of a country. Yeah. That's what I call presidentialism. That to talk about Dr. Ahmed Abiy, and you say prime minister, you say, see president, it comes to the president. But whatever we call it, the point really, which we have been laboring to emphasize, is that whether Abiy is the prime minister or the president, whatever name, and I started by telling you, whatever name you call a rose flower, as long as it gives that scent, that
of a rose,
makes it a rose, then it's okay. You are not going to change it by calling it another name. As long as the prime minister, whom you can choose to call the president in Ethiopia, is holding fort, he has managed to bring peace to the region. Ethiopia, as the cradle, if you like, of our continental independence, and a roaring force around which we have galvanized our physical and other forms of independence, making peace after a long haul with the late Meles Zenawi. And was that part of the reason as to why he got the Nobel Peace Prize? The same system, you can imagine, that gave him that Nobel Peace Prize after settling that long-standing impasse between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Then, this time, he starts now domestically. I had Comrade Akol I wanted to talk about it. One time, I think we were going to discuss the question of Ethiopia. I hope we get time and we discuss. Then we shall go into the nitty-gritties of what exactly is happening in Ethiopia. Anyhow, when he gets domestic and he says, no, look, we have been having a political party which is actually tribal. And this is the problem. This is one other problem we are having on the African continent. That the white man left our politics in a format that is tribal, that is ethnical, that whatever we look at, we try as much as possible to tribalize our politics, regionalize our politics, clanalize our politics. And that is why, for instance, you find that in Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, who was a Tigray, yes, his party was in government, and they constitute about 6% of the population. But you look at the Oromo, you look at the Somalis, you look at the this other Mara. These are big tribes of about 40, 30-something%. But they have not been in government. Now, that tribal kind of political arrangement is what Dr. Abe was trying to get rid of. And I think that largely is what Tanzania, because you see, we started with Kenya, and we were like, you see, what does that tell of Kenya? Kenya has had a unique kind of political arrangement after the dismantling of KANU, that you will find that now the kind of rainbow that brought to Uhuru is no more.
It's gone.
They are reorganizing themselves for purposes of beating Ruto. I don't know what is going to happen if Ruto beats them. That is another
I'm also imagining. I'm also imagining. And I know there's somebody who doesn't want to hear about
that. The scheme is that if we can beat Ruto, then we continue. We continue with not that they so much the powers that be, not that they so much actually love Mzee
Baba Odinga,
Amolo. No, but they know that Odinga is not going to give them hard time. He will be there for a short while as they are cooking something that it will get ready, and then they put him aside.
And they bounce back.
You can't compare that kind of political arrangement and the metamorphosis, the growth, with a long-tested political arrangement, for instance, in the ANC South Africa, or the Chama Cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania, who have a culture of producing leaders and making sure that they groom, they position, they monitor, and then they focus. Of course, Chama Cha Mapinduzi is also having some bits of problems here and there, but that's another thing. At least they are there and they are having their act together. So, my observation is that on the African continent, in the majority of the cases, we indulge in petty discussions. Exactly. And I don't know if this is deliberate or it is our ability. Sometimes somebody is limited intellectually to discuss something, but you who is looking at him, you will think, or how, whatever, you will think that this is by choice. I have had my colleague, Ndogo Andrew Mwenda, discuss some of these issues. And majority of the times he's right. You see, but because there is a way he approaches his debate from a certain pedestal, he is going to be labeled, and I think he has been labeled, that he is no longer objective. He has been bought by Seven. He's the old Mwenda. If he met the new Mwenda, they would fight each other, and that in majority of the cases, the old Mwenda would kill the new Mwenda. I disagree. I think even in our intellectual development, you reach a point and you begin appreciating things differently depending on the circumstances. That has not also left my senior brother Norbert Mao. You'll find that this social media, they come up with all forms of allegations that that one was bought a long time ago. You know he's on the payroll. See, in Uganda we call that okunafia debate. You really, I had Madam Teacher Namboze calling it chemical. That is chemical, chemical. So when you fail to beat somebody through conventional intellectual debate, then you start making unnecessary allegations, and that has characterized our politics on the African continent. Norbert Mao, to me, is a very progressive politician. Very progressive politician. He's been there, local government, parliament. I wish him very well. One of these days, to become the president, maybe he will consider me. Forget I said that. So, at the end of the day, the political arrangements we have on the African continent, they are not designed for purposes of serving our people. However well-intentioned, because we still have the glue, we still have the clawbacks from the colonial masters, you will find ourselves not delivering, not doing justice to our people. That is why, unless and until a time comes when we start looking at what we are able to deliver, no matter the political arrangement on the African continent, designing and making sure that we make a follow-up on delivering the services, empowering our people, these political arrangements, whether you have got 30 or whatever political party, how many do we have in Uganda? Electoral Commission registers them. You see,
about
around there.
Yes.
I have already told you that in DRC we have got over 200 and something. You will find that in other countries they are parliamentary kind of political arrangement. At the end of the day, and I think this is what we agreed, that look, at the end of the day, we are talking about ability to deliver to your people. And Africa appears, because look at it this way. Even in South Africa, for instance, we've been talking about the ANC. I can assure you, if our brother, Comrade Julius Marema, that is Economic Freedom Party?
Yeah. EFF, yes.
Yes. If he's given an opportunity
to lead South Africa, what he says in Parliament, I can assure you, he's not going to implement it. Somehow. When he becomes president of South Africa.
It's impossible. It's impossible for him to...
It's easy to say what he says as
now
as
he can fight, he can put a microphone from the speaker, he can call him all sorts of names, he can embarrass the Madam Speaker and the deputy, he can get his boys in with red jackets and they make a lot of noise, he can abuse the President Zuma from Ramaphosa, and the other time it was Zuma, forget that Zuma is the one literally actually who brought up Julius Marema. We know that history. But at the end of the day, the art of running a government, especially on the African continent as we know it, is beyond talking on a microphone in the comfort of parliamentary chambers.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
I just wanted to maybe add on something he's actually saying, because it reminds me of a book by Peter Abrahams, The Wreath for Udomo, that shows what exactly happened when most freedom fighters were fighting for the independence of Africa. That when some of their members ascended onto power, became actually the heads of states, even the people who helped them, they could not have time to actually talk to them. So ideally, the nitty-gritties of running a government are totally different from when you're struggling to get into power. But now again, that said, I also wish to draw my argument to what you said, the politics of Bamuguze has been really compromised. And this is where I really think I should do, maybe if I had a chance to advise the opposition in Uganda and opposition elsewhere, that in Africa, the only chances where the opposition has won elections is where the opposition has built bridges. Let's get to Buhari. When Buhari successfully managed to beat Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, when he had the backing of Olusegun Obasanjo, because Obasanjo came out openly, not to support the candidate of his party, but to support Buhari, and that is how Buhari wins elections. It means that Buhari built bridges with even some officials within the ruling party, that was the ruling party. The same thing happened to John Kufuor when he actually succeeded Rawlings. Because when Rawlings was serving his last term, John Kufuor concentrated on building bridges within ministers within the Rawlings government. And indeed, they said, look, I think we are in safe hands with him. So everywhere, and maybe the other example I can give is Liberia. At one time, George Weah would not even step in Liberia during Charles Taylor, that he would actually play for the Liberian team, who would find it where the tournament is. Like now, AFCON is Cameroon, he would just fly straight to Yaoundé without, yet he was the team captain. That was the situation. But now, when elections were, when Taylor is out of the way, elections are held, he loses to Salif Johnson. When he lost to Johnson Salif, the 10 years he was actually building bridges. That he built bridges so much that this particular election where he really won, the running mate was the wife of Charles Taylor, the wife of the man who never wanted him in Liberia. So that is how parties are. But if you say it is going to be an eye for an eye, that because Jagenda is in the opposition and is talking to Rugarama, they're having tea, who is NRM, and you say the other one has been compromised, I think that's not how that's very poor politics, and the opposition will actually remain stagnant, and their chances really of ascending onto power will always be
they become reactionaries on Ndugu's agenda. What happens when you approach politics in the manner in which, with due respect, some of our opposition politicians, who are my friends, by the way, approach the kind of politics and the words some of them use, you become a reactionary. You see, politics, although they are high-level contestations, it does not impute hatred and enmity. No, we are simply disagreeing. I have heard people talk about disagreeing ideologically. Maybe we need also to put in perspective the true definition of ideology. With due respect again, some people don't even have ideology. They don't. They don't have ideology, so they say, no, we disagree ideologically. But when that who says he disagrees ideologically, he or she begins to submit on what he actually is disagreeing with the other one ideologically, then I'm reminded of our senior brother, Dr. Nabwiso. That is Kagoma. He was such a fantastic debater. Dr. Nabwiso used to say that whenever he would have somebody in an engagement like this one, he would say that, you see, for me, my duty is very simple. I will, if I'm not going to guarantee you anything, I will guarantee you one thing. I will allow you to talk, air out your views, and I will listen.
Okay.
Even if you are talking from pointless to nonsense, you never know. I may stumble in what you have submitted. When I am countering, I may stumble on a point which you have carelessly or without deliberate effort mentioned, and I use it to my advantage.
Okay, Ndugu Mtuta, you wanted to come in here?
Yeah, I was saying that we was talking about ideology, that most of the political systems in Africa, I think, have that bankrupt, that emptiness when it comes to ideology. Because you cannot have an ideologically grounded party dissolving the next day. Because then it is not.
What was running you?
Yeah, so this NGO, like NGOs that we have, associations that we form towards the end of a system, then we want to have ourselves back in parliament, is where most of the problems of Africa are coming from. Because if it were a political party which is founded on ideologies, it has principles, it has values, members will come in and go out, but the party will stand. But where you find even a party disappearing, then it means we also have that problem. He talks about presidentism. A person comes up and forms his party, and it becomes a party. Now, if you don't agree with him in that party, you have problems. Or a few people come up and form their political party, and it becomes a political party of, in DRC, for example, the provinces are set up on either culture or ethnicity. Now, if you are not a member of that ethnic group, then you are likely to have a hard time belonging to that political party the way it is formed there. Now, and for me, we talked about the African Union, I think, when we were starting. I think one of the things that African Union should take in future is to look at some of these even political setups. For example, if you have a political party, to be a political party, there must be three benchmarks so that you qualify to be a national political party. You should have that national outlook. The character should really reflect a national outlook. That's why, for me, I was saying that if we have in East Africa, for example, let's take a common thing like a DP, because we have DP in Kenya, we have DP in Uganda, I think we have DP in Tanzania. But when you look at these DPs, there's nothing in common.
About the DPs?
Yes.
Other than the name.
Yes, other than the name. There's nothing in common. So, but if you have a DP which has principles that...
They even compare it to the DP in America.
Exactly. So that if you can even relate with the DP in Europe and the DP in America, you know that when DP is in power, these are the issues, these are their values, this is what they believe in. That will be okay. But here you have a DP here after, you know, in Kenya when they disagreed, Matiba, and then they have DP Kenya and the DP Asili. Now, that is part of the problem. Then leaders are not answerable to anyone, but also are not helped to be anyone. The leader comes in power and then becomes even worse than one who was there. And we have seen this happen. And we have said that the problems of leadership in Africa actually are not the leaders, but the system through which they get to power. Now, if these systems are not addressed, and when you're talking about systems, the ideology we're talking about, the values that we're talking about, that as a leader, what are you expected to do? What is your political party expected to do? And how is the answering and monitoring mechanism of your performance as a political party? When you sit in your national conference, how are you marking yourself? And how do you see yourself carrying the country the next 4, 5, or 6 years?
And I think, gentlemen, you're provoking something very important on this particular note. Do we see that happening to us? For example, let's get to Kenya. Kenya is into this period, and of course, I think 9th August this year, they will be voting for the president. Now, if in 2013 you belong to the TNA or URP, eventually to the Jubilee Coalition, and if you're in Kenya at that time and you belong to, there was that, I think it was called, what coalition was that? The Odinga coalition?
NASA.
NASA is 2013. NASA is 2017.
There was the code.
I think it was the code. Yes, I'm looking at the other now. Now you move from the code, then 5 years later you are into NASA. Now there is
Azimio la Umoja.
Azimio la Umoja. Now the conversation is called Azimio, and I'm only thinking.
Political mutations really speak to one thing. The political maturity, because it tells you that we are into politics in majority of the cases for selfish reasons. We do not even care to develop an ideology, because an ideology binds together a party. When you ask Chama Cha Mapinduzi's ideology, that is why a man like the late Dr.
John Pombe,
the Sudan, Southern Sudan,
John
Garang.
asked his members. He said, "You people, you are talking about an ideology. What is our fighting forces ideology?" And majority of the people actually didn't know it, even when he was singing about.
And I think you bring something very important here. And when you go to Sudan, you talk about the SPLM, but you also talk about the SPLM-IO.
Yes, in opposition.
Yes, exactly. Now you have the SPLM, but you also have this called the SPLM in opposition.
Exactly.
What is this thing? Now you are one party there, but you are another party here saying no. And I'm thinking about these things called the ideologies. Do we even care? Do we even follow? Do we even know? Are these things, like you're saying, do we just follow them? We have so many. Come to Uganda, for example, where you have one member today, a very strong UPC. And in the next election, this person is FDC because they've just realized that the dynamics here have actually changed. There are more FDC in this area than UPC. Then the other day, they just discovered that there are more NRM in this constituency than there were the other time. So you become NRM. And you just keep, for as long as people still can actually vote for you. And that's where you are.
This is what we are talking about.
Ndugu Jagenda, I think maybe maybe we shall have a discussion on that. But the question is, who owns Africa's parties? Because that is very, very, very key. That in most cases, parties develop out of strong men. But once somebody is a strong person, he develops a party, the people who believe in him and will always believe in that particular party. Now, for example, Chama Cha Mapinduzi, that people believed in Nyerere as their Baba wa Taifa, and then they have continued to believe in the system that he left behind. Just like you see NRM. NRM is built on the strongmanship of Museveni. UPC in Lango is built on the strongmanship of Dr. Milton Obote. I think that cuts out.
Actually, they recorded his son. They said, "You come and stand for the parliamentary. At least from you, we are able to see the father."
To see the other. So that is how really parties be developed. Now, in Kenya, incidentally, what happens in Kenya is that in Kenya, their politics is about identifying a regional kingpin. For example, if we are the Luhyas, we shall say now Mututa is our kingpin, and whatever Mututa decides, we just move like that. So and that is how their politics.
Azimio la Umoja. It's now Azimio la Umoja.
Yeah, but then,
gentlemen, you want to say something?
Exactly. That's what happens. That there are two things here. Either strong leaders are coming out of stronger systems, or stronger systems are coming out of stronger leaders. And I think next time when we discuss, we'll look at the
systems and the leaders.
Yes.
But finally, Dumbuye is going to run the hard way, because
Dumbuye in Guinea.
In
Conakry.
He's going to run the hard way. This business of coups all over Africa is coming to an end, and their efforts now. I predicted, and their efforts, next time we shall discuss.
Talk about like now, Sudanese are also running the hard way.
Yes,
the Sudan Khartoum.
Yes,
and I think you bring a very good conversation over the gospel and the church. Now, which one precedes the other? Is it the church that makes the gospel, or it is the gospel that makes the church? We have less than 10 minutes to get out of studios here, but very finally, today is 21st of January. And it was on this day that Professor Yusuf Chironde Rule died, NRM's first chairman and Uganda's fourth president, over only 68 days at the age of 68. Any comment on Yusuf Chironde Rule? He died today.
For how long?
He ruled for 68 days and he was 68 years. I don't know the coincidence, but it was today, 1985, that he actually died. Finally, just a comment about Yusuf Chironde Rule before I get out of studios. Mututa.
Last time we were discussing with the Mzee Wana. Of course, there was a social media text which was making rounds. And then he posed the question, said, I think he betted, said, if anyone will come up with the information that actually he said those words, I'm going to give them my salary. And up to now, no one has come up with that to say that he actually...
No, you are talking about Mwanga.
Oh, was that Mwanga?
You are talking about Paulo Mwanga.
Yeah, I think it was betting. He was betting on Mwanga.
Paulo Mwanga said, I look at Museveni, and the way he postures, even when he blinks his eyes, I can actually tell you what Museveni is thinking.
Yes.
And he told them, if anybody can tell me where I'm... And also, I think asked a similar one, where people say, Obote said the good Muganda is a dead one. Yes, but which meeting was this? Where was he?
Yeah. But even Rule, he said what? There's something they said about...
No, with Rule, I'm told that one of the statements that cost him the presidency is that he's Chetwaga Lizembazi.
In Parliament, I don't know
how it is. But when it comes to Rule, I think one, he's a gallant son of his country, because the TPDF, then Fronasa, and then Chikos Malum would not have successfully really penetrated Uganda if they hadn't used his name, that it is actually really coming. Because here, you know, the Obote phobia was so high, they didn't really want anything to do with Obote. So I think that was his role in the second liberation of this country. But still also, you see, again, joining hands with other people to say, look here, we need to clean up the system so that we can have a credible system that, in as far as elections are concerned, that leading to him being the first president of NRC, I mean NRM.
NRM, yes.
Yeah, the only unfortunate part is perhaps that his children have not lived his dream, because we would also see them playing a key role in NRM, but midway most of them defected to the opposition. And
maybe that was not his wish.
Yes.
Maybe my comment there, Ndugu Jagenda, is that like our comrade, the late Emir Patrice Lumumba, Rule was a president for such a small period of time. For us as political analysts really to make useful conclusions. Nevertheless, we do appreciate that he came at a time when Uganda as a country was going through a lot of political metamorphosis. By a government coming and another government coming very quickly thereafter. And his role, like Ndugu Akor has observed, was partly a stabilizing part of the country. And we applaud him for that. So, in a manner of speaking, I think, as a political actor, he didn't do badly, even in the little time that he stayed. As a man, we may not have a lot of time now to go into it, but at the end of the day, he contributed to writing of the Ugandan history.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Just as we get out of studios, we just want to let you know that shortly after here, there will be live coming in from Kololo Independence Grounds on this particular day today. And of course, it will be the launching of the Pearl of Africa brand. And His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, will be there at that event that is organized entirely by the Uganda Tourism Board to launch the brand called the Pearl of Africa. Now, Uganda is the part Pearl of Africa, now launching that brand called the Pearl of Africa. It is today at the Kololo Independence Grounds, and His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni will be there to do this and, of course, launch this. And next week on Tuesday, will be on the 25th. The Most Reverend now, the Archbishop Paul Semogere will also be officially installed as the Archbishop of Kampala, and we just want to wish him all the best, and of course the Catholic community in this country, and to also just remind you that UBC TV will definitely and will be part of that ceremony that will be happening from the cathedral in Rubege, and of course right from Kasana, where Paul Semogere has been the presiding bishop of that area. Thank you so much, Ndugu Akol and Ndugu Rugarama and Ndugu Mututa in studios for Pan-African Friday today, and of course thanking our producer Fakulu Wama and all the team that he's worked with to make this a success for today. We just want to wish you all the best, and to our own Molin Kenyana, it is your birthday today, and from the Pan-African Friday team, we wish you all the best, and Akol has just told me there will be some contribution for a cake. Well, we don't care whether you have 2 cakes or 3 cakes or anything, but Molin Kenyana, the cake from the Pan-African Friday team will be coming your way, and happy birthday to you and to everybody. For God and my country, stay blessed. Good morning and bye for today.